there's some common sense, mostly coming from Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator who's joining us. I like that lovely sage.
Yes.
Sage nod.
Yes, like a very wise owl here in the corner.
Let's go with that. Anyway, whether you are listening on DAB Plus Radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or on your connected device, it's great to have your company. Lots more to talk about this hour, including the migrant smugglers who are going to be fast-tracked, we are told, by Keir Starmer in a speech today through the courts, just like the summer rioters were, under a crackdown to curb channel crossings. I want to know whether this will work or not. Tell us why it will. Tell us why it won't. Got to be honest, so far from the messages coming in, I'm not sure you're convinced. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I mean, does anyone think another 75 million quid of our money being spent on this is going to work? In fact, only a small amount of that, less than £1 million is going on that. They're going to spend the money on drones and things, which is stuff they should have been doing. But let me give the numbers to get in touch and have your say. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. You can also leave a message on our YouTube page. I have to say this bit, calls are charged at the national rate, text cost 1, standard network rate message. Also going to be talking about Kemi Badenoch's new leadership. Of course, Chancellor Rachel Reeves saying she was wrong to promise before the election that she wouldn't raise taxes. But she knew she would. And they suddenly discovered this black hole that was 22 billion, that wasn't 22 billion, then it turned out to be 40 billion.
What are the odds? It's a black hole, it's so massive, it's sucking in more money. We've just got to throw more money at it, maybe that'll appease it.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the latest on the battles between Prince Andrew and his brother, the King. Wow, that is a battle royal, isn't it? Over the Prince's refusal to leave his grace and favour mansion. He's no longer get £1 million a year he's been getting from the Queen. It was Queen's money. Yeah. Again, I'd like to point out that the Queen's money, when she was alive, and still the King's money now, is not fully taxed. We have no idea. She's not required to pay tax because it's her revenues and customs.
Well, yeah, she was the Queen.
She did not pay tax, we know, and then we were told she was paying tax, but we don't know whether she paid, or even the King now pays at the same rate everyone else has to pay.
Why would they? They're the King and Queen. Why would they?
Listen, here's the thing. If you were given an optional rate of tax, would you like to pay the rate everyone else pays, or a lower rate where you just go, I'll just pay 1%, and then you can say you paid tax, but no one will ever know? Which would you do?
I'm just kind of surprised. The Sunday, the Times revelations about they charge people rent to use their land. Yeah, they're landowners. What do people think? And also, talking about the different rates of tax that they pay, they are literally
for ambulances.
It's literally. I know it's not a good look, but they are. It's the royal family. What do people think happens? This is a constitutional monarchy. I have to be honest. As monarchies go, if you look at how other monarchies around the world go, it's a lot better than most.
Talking of which,
I've got to be honest.
I'm doing this in completely different order from what I was planning, but let's talk about the Spanish king.
Oh yes.
And the Queen in Spain, and the Prime Minister, all getting pelted with mud, stuff thrown at them. One of the security guards, actually, for Queen Letizia, he got hit by something, and a Coke can or something, and he got a cut in his head. But King Felipe, Queen Letizia, and the Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez had to actually flee in cars. Local staff had to flee because this is, of course, in Valencia, where they were at the town of Piaporta, which has basically been the worst hit by the flooding. Now we're told more than 200 people have died. However, they still haven't basically got all the flood water out of a lot of underground car parks, big shopping centre. Lots of people raced to their cars to get to their cars because of the floods coming in. The water then came very, very much quicker, within minutes, and people got trapped. And it is thought that some 2,000 people are still missing, which is the worry that the death toll is going to rise far, far higher. And basically these people are saying, look, we've just had no help. People are there with spades themselves, digging people out. And they say they just simply haven't had help. The reaction of local people, I think, would have been a massive surprise to the King, the Queen and the Prime Minister and local authority officials. I'm fascinated by how understanding, Sky, BBC, ITV, they're going, local people, the tensions have risen, and this is how they've reacted. Do you think if British people reacted in the same way to similar circumstance, the same sort of attitude would be
I don't know, to be honest, because I think What I would say is we're not entirely sure yet, actually, what is the overarching cause of this. It's not simply that there has been
climate
record
change.
amount. No, it's not. Well,
it's climate change. It's always climate change.
Is it climate change, or is it because of a policy of removing dams in the immediate area that's made it a lot easier?
Don't complicate things.
Well, that's the problem. Lots of people are going to say it's climate change, it's record amounts of rain, which it never is. Actually, we had this in Germany a few years ago when there were those huge floods, and people were saying this is the record amount of water that's ever been seen on record, and they were stood next to, literally on a wall where in 1280 or something it had gone up a metre higher, and you just thought this is ridiculous. But the point is, who is actually at fault? Is this because of an act of God? Is this because of government policy around dams? In which case, I think that there are some very awkward questions, certainly for Pedro Sanchez, that he and his administration are going to have to answer. So I would understand why he fled in that circumstances. And if you're the king and queen, I can understand why you'd be thinking, well, this has nothing to do with me. This isn't my fault. But would they have got, as you say, would the coverage have been the same? Probably not. But it's fine. It's a different country. You can take a very different tone if it's not the country that you're actually involved in. You can spin it a different
riots
way.
In Europe are always fine.
Yeah, that's just, what are they like, them Europeans? It happens whenever the French start, firebombing, petrol bombing their own police cars, and you go, at it again, are they? Whereas, of course, if it's here, it would be... Everybody
if it was here, of course, all those people would be far
right.
Well, they'd be far right. No, but they'd also all be fast-tracked through the justice system, which is also leading me nicely. Did you see what I did there? To what Keir Starmer is announcing today. Yvette Cooper is speaking right now, the Home Secretary, at the opening ceremony of the Interpol General Assembly in Glasgow. Lucky old her. Lucky old Glasgow as well. And basically the announcement today is that there's going to be a £75 million package, yet more of your and my money to spend on enforcement agencies to tackle channel migrants. Of course, the number of boat people coming over has actually gone up. I think it's about 17% or something this year on the previous year. Why? Well, probably because you drop the Rwanda threat and you also basically say, yeah, we're probably going to let everyone who comes stay because they'll be allowed to apply for asylum, and you can't get rid of these people because 95% of them throw away their passports, they give a false name, you don't know who they are. Funnily enough, really hard to deport people to a country which they've got. If you don't know their name, you don't know their nationality, where are you sending them to? This is a basic flaw. The main thing is you need to stop them wanting to come and you need to stop them being able to come. Neither of which I think are going to be dealt with by spending a load of money to stop the smuggling gangs, particularly jailing people who the smuggling gangs. A, they're all in France, not here in the UK, the people doing that work. And B, the drone stuff, that makes sense, but only if you're going to use the drones to go, yes, these people are all arriving using heat-seeking drones. Yeah. There's a load of people on this beach at midnight. Yeah. Tell the French police, they go and arrest them, job done. Slash the boats.
We need more housing here. We need more tents here.
This
we need more
asylum
processing. Yeah, we need more processing civil servants here because that's where they're coming. That's what the drones will be used for. It won't be to actually stop them. It'll just be there's more of them. That's nice.
Yes.
That's basically will be what it is.
I genuinely believe, having spoken to so many Labour politicians over the years, they genuinely do not believe in borders. When you ask them, OK, well, how many people would we accept? Well, you have to offer people asylum. OK, if there's 5 billion people who've got worse lives than us, and let's say a tiny fraction of them, just a couple 100 million, want to come to this country. How many of those are you accepting? Is it 1,000? Is it 10,000? Is it 100,000? Is it 1 million? Is it 10 million? Tell us how many. They will not give a number.
They won't give a number, and what's really terrifying is then when they try to expand what the definition of a refugee is and they go climate, and you think, so literally the weather. As long as the weather changes, the season changes, and it's a little bit colder or warmer than it was last year, they're just fine.
All those Spaniards are going to be coming over from Valencia at this rate.
I'm a very angry Spaniard, so I'm not quite sure we want that.
The main thing we should do, we should absolutely enforce net zero policies on the whole world, particularly the poorest countries in Africa and the Middle East, so that they can stay poor, not industrialised, have high energy costs, so that they then all want to leave.
So that their societies collapse faster than ours do. And then we'll turn around and go, oh, well, we've got a fantastic solution to the fertility crisis, which is all of these young people coming.
Yes.
That's how this works, isn't it? No, honestly, it's
genuinely mad.
It is mad.
But it's terrifying how many people, and I'm sorry, a lot of the Tory party don't get this either. They pay lip service to it at election time. You judge people by what they do rather than what they say, and then they fail to do. I mean, something Kemi Badenoch said, we talked these things, but then we talked right, governed left. But this Labour government They genuinely don't think there should be borders. They genuinely don't think that people don't have a right to be here or have come to this country. That terrifies me.
And I know that this sounds slightly sort of fatalistic and maybe a little bit sort of hysterical, but people need to wise up to the fact that just because it is the year 2024 does not mean that a civilization can't collapse. It doesn't mean that a government can't collapse. Just because you are Britain and you've got, I don't know, iPhones or whatever fantastic, it does not mean that your society can't collapse if your politicians keep making very bad decisions. This has happened within recent times, actually. The Soviet Union collapsed because people made bad ideological decisions. After a while, the strain on the system is too much. If we carry on down this road, the same will happen here, and that will lead to a lot more suffering and a lot more violence. And I know that everybody, when Elon Musk said a civil war in the UK is inevitable, for those reasons that he was talking about, maybe I do disagree with them, but the idea that, just because it's Britain, it's absolutely fine, come on. That's not actually how things work.
Cannot completely change our country,
you
take
can't.
away, our culture, our values, our history, our pride, and then expect people to go, OK, then.
Yeah, you can't just have a sort of a mad ideology and go, well, just because we are modern and very smart, it has to work. No, you can't undo basic things like, I don't know, physics or economics or even human nature.
Basic values like democracy and like freedom of speech, which underpin everything that we have.
Yeah.
Everything that we have. And these are crucial parts of the Industrial Revolution. The reason, people don't understand how much these things are interlinked. Prosperity, peace, safety, your individual freedoms are so wrapped up in these things. But we've had the undermining of democracy non-stop by the membership of the EU, the trying to challenge the outcome of the Brexit referendum, the urge to just hand over all of the decisions about to the World Health Organization or to the UN or to EU or anybody else, but also just the massive attacks we've had on freedom of speech. So anyone who says anything about anything that the left don't like is instantly labelled a bigot, a racist, a fascist, and people aren't allowed to speak up and express genuine, reasonable, fair, fact-based concerns about what has happened to our country in the last 10 years.
And to then try to replace some people with other people, basically, to go, oh, well, you don't like that, you don't like the living conditions, that's fine, we can import more people who are prepared to work in those conditions, who are prepared to back us on these sorts of things. But again, these are the sorts of things that lead ultimately to the breakdown of society. It's not a new phenomenon, and people saying, one of the things that people
Every empire thought
that they were the special one, that it would work out, including ours, and that collapsed as well, for different reasons, of course, but it did ultimately collapse because of conflict, because of competition between autocracy. And
is Kemi Badenoch the answer?
No. She's not, but neither was Robert Jenrick. And I'm sorry, this is because of a hollowing out of both major political parties. There simply isn't the vision. Because you mentioned just there, a lot of Tories share the same views as a lot of Labour MPs. The political parties in this country no longer, they don't seek out talent, they don't seek out ideas, they are rubber stamping machines in much the same way as the civil service is. It's all about process.
Has that not always been thus?
No, I simply don't think that it has always been the case.
Would you want to be a politician now, though?
No. You wouldn't, because
I've thought about going into politics a number of times. It's been a genuine sort of, is that something I'd be willing to do? All my skeletons are out of the closet, so that's not an issue
for a start, none of the political parties would be interested in taking in people who thought outside of the box, even though that's what they wanted. It was a miracle, actually, that somebody like Dominic Cummings got as close to power and did get the amount of power that he did.
He could have been so good if he was willing to shake things up, and then he went mad with power.
I have to be honest, his personality was as much of an issue there. But if he hadn't had that personality, he probably wouldn't have been able to break through some of the barriers that he needed. He wouldn't have stood out.
My biggest issue with politicians is the need to be liked. I consider the need to be liked a fatal flaw in people. And I know that sounds horrible. It's not like they shouldn't be likeable. But if you just want to be liked...
Yes.
Then I think there are other jobs. Go and work in your local Sue Ryder shop.
But
do you know what I mean? I don't think that's actually... You need to want to do the right things.
But again, this, I'm afraid, actually, and this might sound contentious, this is a failure of democracy. And this is where, actually, we talk about democracy being supplanted or overthrown. People have a responsibility themselves to understand difficult and complex situations and to make difficult and complex decisions, not simply to go for the person who panders to your tendencies or what you want.
Well, so
you get the politicians you deserve, and that is a failing of this country.
When you see the polling, it comes to the budget, when you see the polling about the budget, whether people support or oppose raise this tax, cut this tax or whatever, you could just look across the board. The support is always for taxes. The probably won't affect you.
Yes.
Or anyone you know.
Or house building not near
you. Yes, those people over, those rich people over there, or just put their taxes up. That's not an issue.
Yeah.
Oh, non-doms. Oh, absolutely. We don't really know what they are, but definitely put those taxes up. But not anyone, not here. But meanwhile, I would like a lot of extra spending on the NHS and on schools and on infrastructure. But don't put up fuel duty. Now, this is the thing. We demand these things. When you go to places like France and Germany and you say, wow, they've got this amazing infrastructure, or they've got this, for a start, they overall, all planning objections, by the way, that's how they build that stuff, but also they have much higher taxes on ordinary people. Yeah. The tax rate, your basic tax rate in most of Europe, Western Europe, is so much higher, and people don't realise that. But if you want those services, that's the argument. Now, I'm of the view that we could put our taxes up by an extra 10 points, 10 percentage points for average voters, for basic rates voters. I tell you what, I still don't think our public services will get any better, because the civil service is the problem.
Well, this is actually one of the things that I have an issue with, because people like to compare us to Europe, and I sort of sit back and go, why on earth would you want to compare it to somewhere that has anemic growth, doesn't produce anything new? It is effectively a retirement home where people want their freebies and they want their goodies. Actually, what drives good public services is progress. It's wealth creation. That is how you drag society up by the bootstraps, kicking and screaming in some cases. But that is why the United States,
Southeast Asia and America,
Singapore, South Korea, all of these countries, they are steaming ahead of us now, because that is what they incentivize, the creation of progress, and that is where you then get better public services, because the baseline is dragged up. Maybe the super rich get really super rich,
so what?
But the poorer get richer as well.
I don't care whether you've got 4 private jets or 1. It makes no difference to me.
Whereas in Europe and the UK, the attitude is you can't let those daisies get too tall. You have to cut them down so they're the same as everybody else. And that is how you get decline. I'm sorry, that is how you get poorer. That is the direction we're going.
And that is the end of our TED Talk for today. Never been invited to do one of those. I wonder why.
Oddly.
Anyway, 11:19 is the time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that, and also particularly on the Channel migrant smuggling gangs. They're going to be fast-tracked through the courts. Of course they are, similar to the Southport rioters. It's under Labour's crackdown on crossings. Do you think that's going to really make a difference? Really? Any of you? I'd love to hear. Please call in if you think that's going to make a difference. Just to let you know, I know you're very excited to hear this, that Keir Starmer is currently making his announcement about this extra 75 million quid, your and my money, to be spent tackling smuggling gangs. Do you think it'll actually work? Tell us why you do. Tell us why you don't. I really would love you to call if you think it's going to work. Please. If you're a member of a smuggling gang, and this would... You've been making, $1 million a week from doing this, and now you've found out about this, and you're going to be fast-tracked if you do get caught. Have you decided to down tools and now go work in, I don't know, in a cancer hospice and change your life for good? I'd love to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. While we wait for that call, let's get to some others and some messages. I mean, do they live in the real world, these people, Benedict? Let's have a look. Talia says, it won't work, but it's not designed to work. It is designed to be seen to be doing something when they have no intention of doing anything. The only way is to turn the boats around at sea and not allow a single one to land here. That's the key. They've got to be not land. Pick them all up. Just pick them up and then take them back and drop them just in the water. I know. I mean, and again, if France doesn't agree to that, France is not our ally. But remember, we need to work closely with them. Shane says, won't have any impact at all as long as the incentive of free housing, free healthcare and full benefits are waiting for them. Stop the benefits, stop the boats. Andrew says, no, it won't work because they'll just roll over and give most of them asylum. Housing, handouts, free phone, fast-track NHS treatment, and make sure they're given anything they want. They're just making people more and more angry with the lack of deterrence and more handouts. Mark says, stop them mid-channel. Do not let them pass. Turn them around. Send them packing. Tell that any funny business like jumping in the channel will result in them being left to swim back to France. Well, we had that conversation, didn't we, a little while back with Ben Habib. And, again, under maritime rules, you just literally can't do that. I don't want people drowning. I really don't. I'd rather they didn't drown because they didn't get in the boats in the first place. We will talk to Richard Tice about this, though. He's going to be here in just a few moments, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, live in the studio. I'll talk about this and all other big stories in the news. First up, though, let's go to the phone lines. 0344 499 1000. That's the line that Patrick has called. He's in East Yorkshire. Hello, Patrick.
Hello, Empress. Good to have you back.
Oh, you're very kind.
You just bear with me a second with this, because, again, we're letting them go onto British land.
Yep.
Now, as soon as they step foot onto our British land, now there's 400 a day, and he's going to put them through the courts. court sit from 10 till 12.
Oh, no, let me stop. Patrick, let me stop you. We're not talking about fast-tracking the migrants. We're talking about fast-tracking the people smugglers.
Oh, well, even so, I mean, you've still got to put them somewhere, and they're going to the usual, the hotels and everything. Why the hell? I don't know why this is so complicated.
It's not.
We have a navy.
Yep.
We have a navy. The navy could be out there with their boats and what have you. We have landing crafts, and we could put the rubber dinghies, put the ramp down, put them onto a landing craft, put the ramp back up, turn round, go to the French waters, put the ramp down, and get them off.
The claim is that people will just jump into the sea and you have to rescue them. But again, at that point, fine, you rescue them, and then you take them, on the boat back to French waters. I don't see what the issue is here. If the French don't like it, well, then they can come out and collect them in international waters if they want.
Yeah, but if you're going on a landing craft, you're only in about 2 foot of water anyway.
Yep.
So you're not going to be rescuing them from there, are you?
I mean technically speaking, it would be sort of a tantamount to sort of, an attack on France, you could argue, if the French did agree. But if the French were serious about this, they would agree, because the people are only travelling to Calais to get to us. They wouldn't be travelling through France, a lot of them.
Who cares about France? They don't care about us. We've given them millions and millions and millions of pounds. They've done absolutely nothing. And I don't believe that Starmer can do anything about this at all. It's up to us to say, right, enough is enough. And it's just saying everybody, and I mean everybody in this country, they'd rather spend £8 million on migrants, and it could have covered 8 years of winter fuel allowance in this country.
Yep. Oh, no, I'm completely with you. I feel exactly the same anger and despair, to be honest with you. Patrick, thank you very much indeed. Really good call. Mark is in London. Hello, Mark. Do you think this policy is going to work?
No, I don't think anything they're going to do work, because I don't think they want it to work. My idea is that I think you mentioned this earlier about using drones. I think we should take some of these rigs that they're coming over here, that we've got thousands of them here, take about 50 or 60 of them back over to France. You put 3 or 4 people in, gendarmes and border force, etc. You should be able to cover about 50 or 60 miles of coastline. Yeah. And as soon as you see one of the boats being launched with the migrants in, intercept it, take it straight back to France. Job done. I reckon that'll stop them within about 2 weeks.
Where there's a will, there's a way. There's no. This is the thing.
And the thing is, people are dying in there nearly weekly now, and it seems that their lives are worth less than us, contravening these rules, the ECHR and stuff like that. If the Rwanda bill is still in force and still on the statute books, we should be taking people off of the beaches in Kent, taking them to an RAF base and flying them to Rwanda and letting them sort out their appeals.
Except, of course, when you've got 400 or 500 a day on some good days for good days for the smugglers, not for us. That's all the places in Rwanda filled in the first day.
Yes, exactly. But it would slow down to a trickle within a couple of weeks.
I don't think it would. You'd have to do what Australia did. You literally. Nobody gets on British territory, full stop, end of. That's the only way it would work.
Yeah, that's right.
The Rwanda policy was, I like the principle of it, but it wasn't. And again, other countries in Europe are now looking at similar policies. I like the principle of it, but the actual practice of it, I don't think would have been enough to deter. But Mark, great call. Thank you so much indeed. Final word on all this to Benedict Spence?
Oh, I mean, we should have sent them all to Mauritius as part of the Chagos Islands Agreement. Ultimately, that should have been the price.
There you go, you get them all.
Yeah, absolutely all of them.
Chagos Islands don't look like that much fun to live in. I've got to be honest with you.
They're not very big. They're a very long way away. But though surprisingly, there are some illegal migrants there.
There's some 30 trapped there for years.
But they weren't planning to go there. They just got blown massively off course, which was one of the reasons why it was very amusing to hear Labour say, well, we've cut off a potential route for illegal migrants by giving these islands away. And you think, good Lord, what are the odds of this? No, you'd be better off spending the 75 million that Starmer was talking about, giving 75 grand to 1,000 people and just giving them really big sticks. Ultimately, for what actually we were going to get, you'd be a lot better off just going, no, go away, go back into... That's basically would be better than what we're currently going to do.
I think we're going to get to the point where we're actually going to have British people sort of holding hands on the beaches just saying, no, No, you can't. No more. No more. And again, I've said for a million years, the people like Keir Starmer, Yvette Cooper, they live in their nice big white stucco houses or brownstone houses in Islington or wherever. They do not live with the actual consequences. The people, these migrant young men, large groups, they're living in hostels, living in hotels. They are not living in the end of their streets. They're not turning up and harassing their children. I'm sorry, and their daughters in particular. They're not living with the consequences of it.
They're not taking the services that politicians use. As much as politicians like to pretend that they're just like you and me, they're not. And that's the thing. It's not going to be their school places that are affected. It's not going to be their NHS services that are affected. That's just not... And, of course, because they are high-profile politicians, they're the few people in the country who police actually respond to if there's an issue.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Yeah.